Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Is this classic worth reading? Hi everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into one of literature's most beloved and enduring classics, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This whimsical tale has captivated readers for over 150 years with its fantastical characters, nonsensical logic, and dreamlike journey down the rabbit hole. But does this Victorian children's story still hold magic for modern readers? Let's find out. Set in mid-Victorian England, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland takes place primarily in the fantastic realm of Wonderland, a bizarre underground world accessed through a rabbit hole. While the framing scenes occur in the real world of 1860s England, the majority of the narrative unfolds in this surreal alternative reality governed by dream logic and linguistic play rather than physical laws or social conventions. In terms of length, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is quite compact, significantly shorter than many other classics of the Victorian era. At roughly 27,000 words, about 100 pages in most editions, it's much briefer than works like Dickens' Oliver Twist or Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. This brevity makes it accessible for readers who might be intimidated by weightier tomes. The novel was originally written for children, particularly for Alice Liddell, the daughter of Carroll's colleague, and it remains appropriate for young readers. However, its layered wordplay, mathematical puzzles, philosophical undertones, and satirical elements reward adult readers with a depth that children might miss. I would recommend it for curious readers of all ages, though children under 8 might need some help with the Victorian language and references. If you're pressed for time, feel free to jump to the conclusion for my overall assessment. Otherwise, join me for a deeper exploration of Carroll's masterpiece. Plot. Just a heads up, this part contains spoilers, so skip ahead if you want to avoid them. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland begins with our protagonist, 7-year-old Alice, growing bored while sitting on a riverbank with her sister. When a talking white rabbit with a pocket watch runs past, Alice's curiosity leads her to follow him down a rabbit hole, which turns out to be a portal to the bizarre realm of Wonderland. Upon entering this strange world, Alice experiences a series of physical transformations, repeatedly growing and shrinking after consuming various foods and drinks. These size changes drive much of the early plot as Alice struggles to navigate spaces that are suddenly too large or too small for her changing dimensions. As Alice wanders through Wonderland, she encounters a parade of memorable characters: the caterpillar smoking a hookah atop a mushroom, the Cheshire Cat with his enigmatic grin that remains even when the rest of him disappears, the Mad Hatter, March Hare, and Dormouse at their perpetual tea party, and the tyrannical Queen of Hearts whose favorite phrase, "Off with their heads," threatens anyone who displeases her. The plot unfolds episodically rather than through a traditional narrative arc. Alice moves from one curious encounter to the next, each featuring conversations and situations that subvert logic and expectations. The story culminates in the Queen's croquet match and a trial where Alice is summoned as a witness. As proceedings become increasingly absurd, Alice finally loses patience with the illogical nature of Wonderland, declares it all stuff and nonsense, and suddenly awakens on the riverbank, revealing that her entire adventure was merely a dream. The novel's strengths lie not in plot complexity but in its vivid characterization and the way each episode cleverly challenges conventional thinking. The characters Alice meets are remarkably distinct despite their brief appearances. The Cheshire Cat's philosophical detachment, the Queen's irrational fury, and the Mock Turtle's sentimental self-pity are all rendered with such precision that they've become archetypes in Western literature. What makes the narrative especially compelling is how it captures the peculiar logic of dreams, where impossible things happen matter of factly, identities shift, and normal rules are suspended. Carroll brilliantly conveys this dreamlike quality while maintaining enough coherence for readers to follow Alice's journey. I give it a score of 8 out of 10 for plot. While lacking conventional narrative development, the novel's episodic structure perfectly serves its purpose as a dream journey through a world where logic is turned upside down. The vivid episodes and memorable character encounters more than compensate for the absence of traditional storytelling elements. Point. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland operates on multiple levels simultaneously, which explains its enduring appeal across generations and cultures. Behind its facade as children's literature lies a sophisticated exploration of language, logic, identity, and the absurdities of adult society. At its most accessible level, the novel can be read as a celebration of childhood imagination and a gentle satire of Victorian education. Alice repeatedly attempts to apply her schoolroom knowledge, 4 times 5 is 12, reciting poetry proper etiquette, only to find it useless or distorted in Wonderland. Carroll, who was a mathematics lecturer at Oxford, playfully critiques rote learning while championing the flexible, creative thinking of childhood. Linguistically, the novel is a playground of puns, paradoxes, and logical conundrums. The author delights in exposing the arbitrary nature of language, how words can be separated from their meanings and rules can be twisted. When the Cheshire Cat tells Alice, "We're all mad here," he articulates the novel's central premise. In a world where language and logic have lost their moorings, sanity becomes a relative concept. Carroll also explores questions of identity and personal transformation. Alice's frequent size changes and her moments of existential doubt, "Who in the world am I?" reflect universal anxieties about growing up and the fluidity of self. Her journey can be interpreted as the confusion of childhood giving way to adolescence, a psychological terrain as disorienting as Wonderland itself. For adult readers, the book offers a subtle critique of Victorian society. The Queen's arbitrary justice system, the Mad Hatter's perpetual tea time, possibly alluding to Britain's rigid class structures, and the absurd rules Alice encounters can all be read as satirical commentaries on social conventions and authority figures. Philosophically, the novel anticipates 20th-century movements like surrealism and absurdism in its willingness to embrace nonsense as a pathway to deeper truths. When conventional logic fails, new perspectives emerge, a principle that resonates with modern concepts from quantum physics to postmodern literary theory. While some contemporary critics might question Carroll's occasionally patronizing narrative voice or the passive nature of Alice's journey, she is often swept along by events rather than directing them. These elements reflect the Victorian context and the dream framework of the story. I give it a score of 9 out of 10 for point. Few children's books contain such multilayered intellectual richness while remaining genuinely entertaining. The novel's exploration of language, logic, identity, and social conventions remains startlingly relevant, offering fresh insights with each reading and at different stages of life. Style. Carroll's writing style in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is a masterful blend of clarity and complexity. His prose is generally straightforward enough for young readers to follow, yet sufficiently nuanced to reward careful adult attention. This balancing act represents one of the novel's most remarkable achievements. The narrative voice alternates between omniscient commentary and close alignment with Alice's perspective. This technique allows readers to simultaneously experience Alice's confusion and maintain enough distance to appreciate the humor and absurdity of situations she doesn't fully comprehend. Consider this passage as Alice falls down the rabbit hole. Either the well was very deep or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her, and to wonder what was going to happen next. The matter-of-fact tone renders the impossible event strangely plausible. Carroll's dialogue is particularly brilliant, concise, character-defining, and often philosophically rich. The conversations between Alice and Wonderland's inhabitants function as verbal puzzles that play with logic, meaning, and the limitations of language. The Mock Turtle's explanation that lessons are called lessons because they lesson each day exemplifies Carroll's fondness for puns that reveal the arbitrary relationship between words and their meanings. The author excels at creating vivid imagery through precise, economical description. Rather than lengthy passages detailing Wonderland's landscape, Carroll offers selective details that stimulate the reader's imagination. When he writes that the Cheshire Cat vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tale, and ending with the grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone, the visual paradox is rendered with unforgettable clarity. The novel's pacing is brisk, with each chapter offering a distinct episode that introduces new characters or situations. This episodic structure might feel disjointed in less skilled hands, but Carroll uses Alice's continuous presence and recurring motifs, size changes, encounters with playing cards, nonsensical conversations, to maintain cohesion. One potential weakness for modern readers might be the Victorian-era cultural references and wordplay that occasionally require footnotes for full appreciation. Some parodies of now-forgotten children's poems might miss their mark with contemporary audiences. Additionally, the narrative sometimes employs a slightly condescending tone toward Alice that reflects 19th-century attitudes toward children rather than contemporary sensibilities. Despite these minor dated elements, Carroll's prose remains remarkably fresh. His ability to create wonder through language, his precise evocation of dream logic, and his talent for rendering complex ideas in accessible form continue to influence writers across genres. I give it a score of 9 out of 10 for style. Carroll's inventive language, memorable dialogue, and ability to blend simplicity with sophistication create a reading experience that remains engaging and influential more than 150 years after publication. Conclusion. I give it a score of 8.7 out of 10. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland stands as one of literature's most enduring and influential works, a book that successfully bridges the worlds of children's entertainment and sophisticated literary art. Its remarkable staying power comes from its ability to operate simultaneously as a delightful fantasy adventure, a playground of language and logic, and a subtly subversive examination of Victorian society and human nature. The novel's greatest achievement lies in creating a world that feels both utterly foreign and strangely familiar, like dreams themselves. Wonderland's rules may be nonsensical, but they reflect the absurdities and contradictions we encounter in real life, albeit in exaggerated form. This recognition explains why the book continues to resonate with readers of all ages and has permeated popular culture so thoroughly. While some elements of Carroll's Victorian sensibility might feel dated, the core appeal of his creation remains timeless. The questions Alice encounters about identity, authority, language, and reality are as relevant today as they were in 1865. Modern readers might even find the novel's playful deconstruction of logic and meaning more pertinent in our era of information overload and shifting truth claims. I recommend Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, without reservation to readers of all ages. Children will delight in its fantastical elements and humor, while adults can appreciate its linguistic innovation, philosophical depth, and social commentary. It's particularly well suited for anyone interested in Victorian literature, the history of children's fiction, surrealism, or the foundations of literary fantasy. Whether encountering it for the first time or revisiting it decades later, readers will find that, like Wonderland itself, Carroll's masterpiece reveals new dimensions and meanings with each journey down the rabbit hole. Ready to experience this timeless classic for yourself? Get your copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in paperback today. Click link in description below to order directly from my KDP store on Amazon and have this beautiful edition delivered straight to your door.